The stuff I use is in the description. Feel free to peruse that all you want. This is going to be an exceedingly boring video. Why? You know why.
Today's task is to use a little heavy cut and see if I can get through the oxidation on the side here, which I'm pretty sure I can. I'm also going to be taking off these hull numbers and the registration sticker, which is kind of funny. He told me that he took off about a 1/4 inch of stickers before he put this one on, which explains why it's shiny behind that. So if you're interested at all, hang out. I'm going to take the snaps off of the cover just so that they're out of my way, kind of like I did yesterday, and I'll just be going through the motions. If you're interested and you have a boat that has dark gel coat and light gel coat and decals, and they're a little old, the boat's a little old, then this is the video for you. Also, if you don't want to spend 3 days wet sanding a boat, this is the video for you. All right, I'm going to stop filming for right now just because it's super windy. I think you can appreciate that I might have some crap weather coming in, so I'm going to get into this as fast as I can, get as much done before the rain hits. I just wanted you to see what we're working with to begin. Obviously, some decal mishap has occurred in the last 20 some odd years. Got some pretty heinous oxidation on the back, on the sides, and within a little bit, in fact, this side only took 4 hours. So 4 hours later, this side of the hull and the top side got taken care of. It is not my best work. I was specifically asked to literally just wipe something on and wipe it off. I couldn't do that, personal reasons. I had to go a little bit harder than expected because this is the first boat that I've done in this parking lot. And if I want to get any more business, I really can't half-ass it. I mean, I can, but I have to do a better half-ass job than anyone else in the area doing a half-ass job. If you're wondering how I get these letters off, I've got a little scraper here with a razor blade. Now, I've detuned the razor blade, which means that it's not sharp enough to cut me, and it's not really sharp enough to cut the boat unless I'm an idiot. I also put a slight bend in it, so the edges go up a little bit, the middle hangs down, so it's got kind of a concave shape, and I just get under the letter and just at a nice steep angle, just push up. Sorry, that was terrible camera work. Now, because up at the top here, it's got a little curved lip that comes out, I want to be really careful and not put a lot of weight, so I'm just going to wiggle this, and that's it. And I collect it with my other hand, and I hold all the little pieces, wad them up into a little ball, and throw them away when I'm done. If you push too hard, if you go too fast, if you haven't detuned your razor blade and you haven't turned up the edges, you run a risk of gouging your gel coat pretty good. If, however, you gouge the gel coat and you're not pushing very hard, you can usually get that out with a buffer and some compound. So don't freak out too much if you can. Also find maybe a plastic razor blade replacement. Those are definitely a lot more forgiving. They don't, however, have the ability to pull off some really sticky, cemented on decals. They sometimes roll up, break off. So on occasion, I like to just use a real razor blade, just so I have a little bit more strength, a little bit more control in the... Sorry, I'm trying to grab this piece of decal. Okay. 2 hands is not always enough. Okay, and then pull off this guy here. Where am I? Now this one's tricky because it's right next to the pinstripe. Sorry. This one's tricky because it's right next to the pinstripe. Dude, there, pinstripe. So you might want to go from the top and just kind of wiggle it in there. And you don't need a ton of decal pulled up before you can just grab it with your fingers sometimes. Sometimes it won't break in half. Yep, sometimes. And any of the residue that gets left behind, just take that off with some acetone or denatured alcohol or paint thinner, whatever. You just need to get the goo off before you start compounding. And technically you don't need to. You don't need to get it off before you start compounding. You can compound most of it out. The problem is then all that glue and that sticky residue is, locked into your buffer wheel. So it takes a while to get that out. And if you can avoid that, that's just always better. Anyway, I'm going to keep working on this. I find that hitting corners of a decal with the center of the blade is probably the most effective way to do this. And like I said, you don't have to get the entire thing off sometimes. You can use a heat gun. That will also soften the adhesive behind the decal and sometimes make it easier to pull off. And if you can pull them off in one piece, generally they leave behind a lot less residue. So, like that. And that's the original shine of the boat. Not terrible. And that's what we're going to be working for later on today. So anyway, this is not really entertaining or special. It's just something that you have to do. And while I'm here, I might as well go around. See, I would love to take off his bayliner. I asked him and he said no. I also suggested that we take off his pinstriping and find some new old stock pinstriping, and he said no. I really want to take that off. This is a remainder of a decal that continued out here and went that way. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the decals that I'm going to take off. Although, I kind of want these ones off, but I don't know. Usually when they're warning stickers, I need to get authorization from the owner. Some people actually think that those are important, and it's not my thing. There's also on this boat some spider cracks. I don't know if you can see up in here. There's nothing I can do to that. I can't even make those look less imposing. They're in there pretty substantially. So, but I will show you the results when I'm done. And maybe if the wind dies down, I'll save this for later so you can see what it looks like to take some of the old lettering out of gelcoat. I thought I would show you, the wind died down a little bit. I thought I would show you how quick this goes. So let's see. I'm pretty sure you can see the reflection here. Now it is an angled shot, so it's all gonna look good, but compared to what was, let me show you how quick this goes. So I'm gonna set you up right about here. And I'm gonna grab some compound and I'm just gonna work on this blue stripe. So you'll see me spread the compound, I'll hit my edges and then I'll work the middles, but you'll also see how rapid this goes. All right, so I've got a little blue on the pad. I am taking some home. For all those people that don't think that buffing removes oxidation, you just explain to me what the color is and I'll quit doing my job. All right, so I'm gonna spread this out first. That's pretty easy. You just kind of roll it along the area you're working on. Give it a couple little taps with the trigger. Make sure to try to cover every little square inch that you're gonna be working on. And don't worry that I'm putting blue in the hull. It's not gonna stay there. All right, now let's work on the edges. I'm gonna start on this side, so you're not gonna see it. I'll edit it, whatever. Here we go, low speed. I'm guessing you can already see the reflection. Now I hit the bottom edge, right above the decal. I don't put a lot of pressure on it. I just want to make sure that I'm covering the gel coat that's just above the decal. That's all I'm really focusing on. If you see the compound get eaten away by the buffer wheel above that, that's just because the buffer wheel is the buffer wheel.
Looks like he's got some scratches here. So when I'm done with this, I'll come back and focus on this little area. All right, now the middles. And then flatten out a little bit. Okay, so right in here you can probably see the scratches. I'm just gonna try to get fancy with it. And then we wipe it off to make sure that we like what we see. And hopefully you like what you see. Ta-da! All right. The scratches were right in here. I'm not really seeing them anymore. I've hit this with acetone, pulled off the glue residue, or at least most of it. There's still a little bit there for some reason. I guess I suck. All right, good enough. Next. All right, here I go. I'm gonna spread this out, and then I'm gonna grind a little bit. All right. Okay, edges first. Here we go. Terrible with the glue. I left a little bit more down there. All right, bottom edge. And you notice I'm leaving a little bit of compound in the middle so they have something to work with when I get there. This might take 2 passes. I'm seeing a little bit of color difference. And we'll see when we get to the last little pass here. Here we go. Middles. And flatten out. Let's take a look. There you go. Sorry. Now there's a little bit that I might tick up in here. It's a little higher edge. It's shiny, there's no oxidation, but you can see it because it's got a little bit of an edge to it. I might touch that one more time, although just like the other side, it is going to help the owner put the registration stickers back on. So, again, half-ass boat. I'm not supposed to be here doing perfection, which I'll go ahead and say there's probably some semblance of a swirl inside this blue stripe here. Not much, and once we get to the random orbital polisher with the wax, that should go away. Not all of it, but some of it, most of it, 90 some odd % of it. Again, if I was doing this the way I normally do, I'd hit this with heavy cut, then come back over it with perfected EXAC, and then clean it, inspect it, and then wax it. But I'm not going to go through all those steps just for the sake of keeping with the customer's requests. I do, however, want to make it shiny, so I'm going to go a little harder than they asked me to, but when it comes down to it, I'm going to go ahead and do what I'm getting paid to do. And it feels kind of humbling, but it's, sometimes you don't get to do everything you want to do. Anyway, as soon as I get this blue stripe done, I'm going to go work on the white. That should go pretty quick. If there's anything fun and exciting to show you, I will show you.
Welcome back. All right, that was cheesy and uncalled for, I admit. Hey, I'm back here at this Bayliner, and today I've got some stuff for us. Taped off the foredeck, sun deck, whatever. Just getting ready to do a little compounding up there. Still got to tape off the trim on the windscreen, and then we got to hit all this nastiness. But before we get into that and take out all the screws and the snaps and whatnot, I thought I'd get into something kind of cool. Give me a sec. All right, well, a couple of you, Brian and Ken, sent me a little beer money. So out of respect and appreciation, I'm going to show you one of my new favorite beers. This is a Reuben's Brews. You guys have heard me talk about these before. This is their summer IPA. And no, I didn't bring a glass. I apologize. These guys are out of Seattle. This is a little bit hop forward, a little bit fruity. 60 IBUs, so it's got a little bit more bitterness than some of the other session beers that I drink. I apologize that I didn't bring a glass. You can see it's not terribly cloudy, and I don't mean to waste the beer. I apologize. Let's get into this. That is a decent IPA, really crisp. All of the flavors kind of go and then they shut off, except for there's a little bit of hoppiness in the back, and of course in the front. And if none of this makes sense to you, just understand that an IPA isn't just one flavor. It's kind of like a cigar. So the first sip, you get kind of the florals and the fruities and a little bit of the bitterness, and then when you swallow it, towards the middle of that action, you should get a little bit more fruitiness, a little grapefruit flavor on the sides of your tongue. And then once it's swallowed, you take a breath and you cleared your palate. You can still taste a little bit of the bitterness of the hops, but it's got a good flavor, good enough that I might have another sip. Shut up. So to Brian and Ken, cheers, guys. I appreciate your help. Thanks so much. That's a good beer. Y'all should get one. Here, I'll show you what that looks like. Cool. Let's get into a boat.
off all those lines?
Sorry?
Did you tape off all your pinstripe?
Oh yeah.
That was like, what is he doing?
Yeah, well, nobody wants shiny non-skids, so...
Yeah, they're like, oh.
And the compound has a tendency to stick in it, and it's hard to get out, so if you just avoid it...
Yeah, I was wondering, I said, he's one step ahead.
Yeah.
When he does that.
Just trying to avoid the cleanup later.
You're doing a good job there.
Cheers. And I don't need a full wash, but I can use a little window cleaner and some microfiber rags to clean up the areas that were just compounded. And after that, if they look good enough, it's time to add the wax. So here we go.
And 4 hours on the other side, and ta-da, she's done. You could do this probably in a weekend if you wanted to. If you wanted to spread it out into 2 weekends, that'd probably be easier. However, if you wanted to do this in just 1 weekend, it is possible. You don't have to go through all the steps all the time. You should, don't get me wrong, you absolutely should, but if you don't have time or if you don't have all the equipment, just kind of half-ass it. No big deal. Anyway, I hate doing the transom and the swim step. And for all of you who've asked me questions about can you polish over spider cracks, yeah, you can. There's a couple right there. And there's another set. They're harder to see, but right in here. So you absolutely can polish over spider cracks. And if you're looking at reflections, look head on, you should be able to see the same type of reflection that you see here. All right, that's it. I don't have very much else. I put the cover back on because I'm done with her. She's a little dusty, but that's what you get. Pieces, yo.